Hello, everyone. My name is Tsering. I am one of the associate director here at FCJ Refugee Center. I'm mainly overseeing the settlement area here at FCJ, which includes of housing, primary care clinic, anti-human trafficking, and we recently have a new program, which is the Refugee Hub program, where we support newly arrived refugees with the housing. So access to housing, it's a very it's a broad topic and has many criteria. So today I will just be presenting about how to search mainly, and we see many clients here, and that's one of the common thing that we have noticed here at FCJ also is they are new to country and they don't know where to look for and what to look for. So basically that housing search is one of the main component that I will be covering. And at the same time, I will touch a little bit about a little bit on the housing subsidy, the housing allowance that you may be eligible under the City of Toronto if you are in the shelter. And towards the end, I will be leaving quite some time for questions, question and answers. So if you have any questions, we can talk about that towards the end. Also in between, if you have any questions regarding slides or anything, just interrupt me. I don't mind. So the picture that you see over there that's the FCJ Refugee Center. We don't have like not a building or it's a typical or place. It's a house. So that's our center. And how can, okay. Let me move this. Okay, so who we are a nonprofit organization. We serve refugees and others at risk due to their immigration status. We always welcome anyone asking for advice, counsel, and support regarding these issues. Our door has always remained open, and every year more than 5,000 people contact our center seeking assistance, not only from Canada, but from around the world as well. So basically, okay, I'm just jumping right to the housing search. One of the things that I would like to start is when a refugee, when they first arrive in the country, the first thing is they will need to seek shelter initially. And while they're in the shelter, they will be given a time to start looking for places. So this is the process after that, okay? So these are checklists that it's very important that you have when you're thinking about a housing search, is the types of housing, sharing a budget, where and how to search, viewing apartment, rental applications, signing the rental contract, moving supports, your rights and responsibilities as a tenant and as a landlord also. I will be going through that. And what are the available supports? Sorry, is there someone? Okay. Sorry, interrupt me if you have questions because I'm minimizing the screen so I don't see. So
And we'll
as
let you know if there's any questions as well in the chat soon.
okay, perfect. Thank you. So as refugee claimants in Toronto, the first two priorities you and your family are the immigration matter and finding permanent housing. The first part, the immigration, that should be done within a week because there is a timeline of 30 days. However, the second one is the more tricky one to find a permanent housing. Housing searches are very challenging and can take times depending on the size of families. If you're single, it's a little bit less challenging. However, for the families, it's very hard. So it is important that you start as soon as you are able to. You don't wait for 2 months, 3 months, while you are in a shelter. So that's something you need to start right away. And when you're ready to start looking for apartment, you should connect with the housing worker, wherever shelter you are, whichever organization you are, or whichever agency you are connected with. Ask if they have a housing worker or if they have a settlement worker who you can seek support, and then they will guide you accordingly. Here, I would say I will speak of Ontario mainly, the types of housing. So rental rooms. Rental rooms is when you see an ad saying rental rooms, it's basically it's a single room or a shared space. Could be a house or a rooming building. And this is a cheaper accommodation, and also is most affordable option for single adult. Rental rooms are usually they are one large home and divided into private rooms. So in each room have one tenant. And then the next up is the apartment. Apartments are those, the building, they have either a bachelor unit, which is it's a single room and a living area all together, and there's the bathroom also. So bedroom, living room, and kitchen area should all be in the one space. And the apartments could consist of bachelor units, studio, 1, 2, or 3 bedrooms. One of the things that we always, when we do the planning with the client in terms of housing search, is always first thing is the price. What things that are affecting the price, size, location, distance from school, transit, etc. So it's important that you set a budget before you start looking. And location, it's very important to think about the cost and what you can afford, because some areas in Toronto are more expensive than others. School and services are available in different areas and can be transferred. So whether, regardless, wherever you move within GTA or Ontario, you will have access to school. So it's because some people, when we start looking for further away from Toronto, they're worried about, oh, is there a school? So there are schools everywhere, and you should be able to send kids or yourself to school within your catchment area. Since we have been dealing with the housing crisis here in Canada, it is very important to understand if you are open to moving out of Toronto. If you want to stay in the city, and if you're open moving outside Toronto, there's a bit of commute, there's a bit of when you have to come if you're working in the city, or if you plan to find a work in the city, there's a bit of commute. However, it's more I would say it's little more affordable outside Toronto in terms of the rental. So that's something you can also think about. So when we do the housing search, the first thing is to set a budget. So it's important to know like how much money you will receive each month. For example, if you are on a social assistance and if you're a single person, the max that you can receive the basic needs and the shelter amount is 743. So accordingly, you need to set a budget. How much do you need for food? How much you need for transportation? How much do you need to pay for a phone monthly? And then the other expenses. And all this you need to keep in mind, and then you will have some sort of idea how much you will afford, how much you will have to pay for rent. And always check, when you look for the rental apartment or rental unit or rental place, always check the rent amount list. Oh my God, sorry, there's so many spelling mistake here. Always check the rent amount listed on the advertisement, because one thing is what you see either on the Kijiji or on the Facebook marketplace nowadays, or they put a sign. It's important to call them and to verify how much the rent is, because oftentimes it's different. They post less on the advertisement, and when you call, it's a different amount. Remember, the rent includes utilities as well, and sometimes things like water, electricity, internet, there could be an extra cost that you will need to cover, because depending on where you're looking for example, if you're looking in a rooming house, or if you're looking for a space, or if you're sharing the house with a landlord. So these are some of the costs that you may have to share with others, or it may be an extra cost. So those are things that you need to also think about. So basically these these are the amount, the allowance that one can receive if you are in a social assistance, and then accordingly you can budget for the housing. However, if you are on the Ontario Works and and if you find us, let's say for a single person, your max is 743 a month. And if you find a place, a single room for 700, which goes beyond 85%, so your caseworker may decline that. That is possible because you have to stay within the limit of 85% of your allowance. Because they will also question how you will be, how you will be surviving with the amount that left, which is only 43, for example. The caseworkers at the social assistants, they do understand, I hope they do understand the housing challenges. However, the set limit is that 85% of your allowance. You cannot go beyond that in terms of looking for a housing. So that's something you have to also pay attention to. Where and how to search. If you have a friends and relatives in Canada, it's always good to ask them if they the place where they're staying, if they can ask the landlord, or if they know a place available. And second thing is there's the classified section of the newspaper, online listing. There are many, for example, here at FCG, we see many clients of a Spanish speaking, And they are, if you go in the local stores, sometimes they do have a newspaper in your own language. So those you can also find housing through them. If there's a language barrier, that's something you can also look into. And the other thing is, just check around the neighborhood, check around city, check around if you the areas that you are interested in living, and go around for a walk. You will see, if you see a rental poster sign, then you can also, that's another way you can also look for housing. Always be cautious in your search, because there are many false advertisements about rental unit or apartments, which some listings are not really available for rent. And if someone is asking you for deposit money without offering you a lease or viewing, be very cautious, because this could be a spam. And if you can only contact the person through email, you should be speaking on the phone before you go to see a place. And the last is, remember, most of the apartment buildings here in Toronto or in Ontario, they are managed by the companies, and therefore you should be able to contact them through the supervisor. When I say supervisor, what I mean is, in every apartment building, they have office right when you enter the building. You should be able to, it's a rental office. You should be able to go there and speak to someone who is like a property manager or a maintenance worker of that apartment, should be able to hand you a application form. Other thing that I want you guys to be cautious about your search is that this has happened a few times, that when you see something cheap, nice place and very affordable price, that alone is a red flag. It's important that you make sure you check the place in person before you provide deposit or anything. If someone is forcing you for a deposit right through on the email or over the phone without even looking, and say, I have many people looking, I think uh, you should be careful about that, because that's a big red flag. Because I know there are many people looking, and especially when you find something affordable and cheap, the place goes right away very fast. The other thing, I'm sorry, the PowerPoint is not like updated as of today, so I'll add one more thing. Lately, we have noticed that they are renting a place. Before, it's a rooming. It's you can rent a place. It's a rooming place, but nowadays, within in one room, you will be sharing another bed with the other person. So those things you must clarify with the landlord before you start renting a place. Especially this is for a single person when looking for, like, shared. Of course, the house, when there's a rooming house, is always shared. However, you're sharing kitchen, bathroom, the common areas, not your bedroom. So those are something that you always also have to clarify with the landlord, or with the whatever the advertisement you see. That's something we have seen trending lately, obviously because of the housing challenge also. So if when you see apartment or a place that you like, you have to book appointment with the landlord, whether it's over the phone or email. You book the appointment, and always be on time. It's important you look for directions ahead of time. And please, folks, don't be late, because that's something, if you see something affordable and you want to get place, it's, that there are 10 other people coming for the appointment as well, and is looking for a place. So it's important that you be on time. Also be polite and respectful, because there are probably a lot of people looking at the apartment, and it helps to maintain a good impression. Um, bring someone with you. Uh, because that's because you're going to a new place, you don't know who you're going to see, so it's always bring someone or go with someone when you go view the apartment or the unit. If you want to take a picture, ask if you can take a pictures inside the house, because if you want to show it to your friends or your family or relatives. Ask to test doors, light switches, the toilet flush, all the electrical outlet, if they're working. You can ask landlord if you can test all those. And in the end, you can also ask what is included. One thing is what they advertise. And then the second thing is what you have communicate with the landlord over the phone. And the last is, you actually, when you see the person, you actually need to confirm and ask what is included in the rent, what are the extra costs. Those are all, like, it's very important to ask these small details. Never assume anything. So this is basically for places where you need to fill out applications. If you find some, like mostly apartments, if you find something that you are interested in, you need to fill applications. And every application forms are different, but they often will ask the same questions. Your personal informations, the your name, family members who will be living with you, finance, which is your source of income. If you have work in Canada, work history. I know this is not applicable for most of the refugee claimants who just arrived or newcomers. However, you can explain that. And if you may require to deposit at the time of application. And this does happen when you are renting a place in like a room or unit in a rooming house. They do ask for a deposit. Regardless, if you're giving any money or anything, it's important that you ask for a receipt, because that will be a proof that you paid. And also make sure that you can get those receipts from any dollar store or anything. However, you need to make sure that the landlord writes name, address, and everything. So what are the required documents? ID. This might be a requirement, but they're not allowed to ask about your immigration status. They may ask you about ID, if you can show ID. Proof of income. So for example, if you're working, they will ask you for your employment letter. So you can ask your employer if he or she can do a letter for you stating that you're working here, studying this, full-time, part-time. So that's generally about a letter. And most of the folks just arrived are on the Ontario Works or ODSP. So if you are on social assistance, you can ask, every month you will be receiving a Ontario Work statement. which is how much you receive for basic needs, how much is for the shelter, and then if you have any extra medical related separate income, then that's basically what you need to show. That's the proof of income. Proof of income doesn't not necessarily mean that they're asking you for employment letter. Okay, that's something I need to clarify, because if you're on Ontario Works and you're receiving Ontario Works every month, that's your income. And that's how you can also explain, because some landlord may be hesitant. So that's something you can clarify. You may be asked to provide a guarantor, someone who signed the lease with you to confirm that rent payment will be made. For example, this will happen mostly in the apartment buildings or condos, where they will ask you for, like, if your income, if you're on a social assistance, they may ask, or if you don't have a work history or a landlord reference, because they will ask you for landlord reference. But someone who just arrived in the country, who have never rented a place, this will be your first rental experience. So you do not have a landlord reference to provide. So the landlord may ask you to provide a guarantor. So if you have family members here who can be a guarantor, is someone, it's same like the leaseholder, because guarantor is sort of signing the lease that and confirming that you who's living in the apartment will be paying rent on time. Landlords may ask you for other documents, but you do not have to provide them, such as your social insurance number, bank statements. So those are some of documents that you do not need to provide. You're not obligated to provide. Some of the important facts, information a landlord can ask you is your income, and if you're working, like I said in previous slide, the number of people living in the unit and their names, if you smoke or have pets. So these are some information that landlord can ask. What landlord cannot ask you is how old are you, your sexual orientation, your immigration status, your religion, your health status, including pregnancy. So those are some of things that landlord cannot ask you. So if your landlord has approved your application, you will be signing a contract or a lease, or it may be called the rental agreement. It's the agreement that you make with the landlord that you will pay rent and utilities, utilities if included, on time and in a full amount. And the lease should outline, depending on the lease, but the standard lease or the standard rental contract won't consist. Some leases are very long, 11, 15 pages. However, that's different. But the lease should have, if you are signing a lease, the lease should at least outline monthly cost, what is your monthly rent, and the responsibilities of the tenant and the landlord. That's very important. And the length of agreement, if it's a one year, or nowadays I'm hearing that there are month to month rent. These are the things that you need to the lease should have. If you're satisfied with the unit and if your lease is for 1 year, you can continue staying in the unit. You don't need to sign another lease. You can just, you can stay past the 1 year. Do not sign anything you do not understand. Always read the contract. Always, it's very important that you need to read each and everything, because everything is related about you and the landlord and about the unit where you're staying. So there is not a single line that is not applicable for you. It's all, you will need to go through each and everything what you're signing for. Do not hesitate to ask questions if you're not clear about anything. Always ask questions, and make sure get a copy of the signed contract. When you have a lease, it should be signed by yourself and the landlord. So make sure you have a copy of that. And again, some rental lease are different nowadays because many are renting a unit or a room. So if you don't have like a proper lease or a rental agreement, it's important that when you pay the monthly rent, always ask for a receipt. That's regardless. If the landlord is not giving you a receipt, that's a red flag. So you have to be cautious about that. So once you have signed a lease contract or made an agreement to rent an apartment, you should inform your caseworker. If you are on Ontario Works, you inform your Ontario Works worker right away and request for the HSF fund, which is the Housing Stabilization Fund. That's a pot of money that the worker can provide you to pay for the last month rent. And also they can do a moving arrangement. So those are the things that you can ask your caseworker. Depending on a settlement organization, you may be able to ask for any, if you can be referred to the furniture bank and give your information about a way to get an affordable mattresses, or if you require furnitures. And furniture banks are free. You only have to pay depending on where you're asking for. You will only have to pay for the transportation, I believe, for delivery. This is the Housing Stabilization Fund. The amount could be more because this is from the last data. So Housing Stabilization Fund, what it is a fund that a client can receive if you're on Ontario Works to help you pay for the last month rent. Because here, if you secure housing or if you're renting a place, you have to pay first and the last month rent. And this fund can also cover for moving. And the rental arrears are in future when you have like if you're on Ontario Works and for some reason you are behind the payment, if you couldn't pay this month rent, or if you couldn't pay, like for example during COVID, there's many people out of work and not able to pay rent. So that's if you're on Ontario Works and if you're behind the rent, you can speak with your caseworker, and this fund is also used for that, to pay for the rental arrears. And these are the amount that the maximum annual housing stabilization fund entitlement is based on the family size. So these are the amounts. However, your caseworker will let you know how much you will receive. Um,
Sorry, Tsering,
so
sorry, just before you go to that slide, I just wanted to acknowledge that we are past 1 o'clock. So I know folks are here during their lunch, so we hope that you're able to stay until the end of the presentation. But of course, if you're not able to, we will be able to, we might be able to send out the minutes afterwards. But sorry, continue.
sorry, I was didn't even check the time. I think I'm almost done. As a refugee claimant, many of you must have heard about the subsidized housing here in Toronto, which the wait time, the wait list is ridiculous. However, I do encourage every one of you to at least do the application. It's online. You can Google. It's a housing connection. You have to be. There's the eligibility, and if you're a refugee claimants, you are eligible for that. So that's something I encourage everyone to at least do the application. We never know when the situation changes in the process of refugee, and through, like, during the time you are here until you receive your citizenship or your residency. Sometimes the situation happens, and some are not some are unfortunate. So this is something, there is a priority housing for many criteria. So it's important, if you apply for this, in that way you have your application. And also, once you do the subsidized housing application, it's important that you know the client number for that. And also, if there's any situation changes, you move to a different place, you always need to update there. And you also need to do your taxes for this, because you need to upload your notice of assessment. So folks who just arrived this for example, from January, I know you have not done your taxes, but here we do taxes every, I think it starts late February until April. So this is a notice of assessment is something you will need for the subsidized housing application. So this is basically, if you are interested in applying for subsidized housing, it will be based on 30% of your household income. And like I said, it's easiest way is to do the online application. Nowadays, we don't refer client to go to 176 Elm Street. Rights and responsibilities. This is something I really encourage the people to know, because sometimes when you don't know your rights and responsibilities as a tenant, and there are many cases where landlords are abusing rights. So that's why, when you sign the lease, it's important in that lease should be a rights and responsibilities of each tenant and the landlord. So it's important that you read your rental agreement very carefully. So this is just some of the examples. However, in the lease should be, it's pertaining to each landlord. If you look at number 3, it's keeping noise level low to respect other tenants. Here in City of Toronto, it is it is by law that, after 11 and before 7 a.m. there's a time frame that if you do make a loud noise, or if you're playing a loud music, it could be that the neighbors or anyone can call police for that, because it's again that you have to also check with your depending on if you're living in an apartment or if you're living in the house, it's the time frame is a little bit different. So those are something that it's important to pay attention. Okay, so this is it's a landlord. I will go through this because this is very important. What are the responsibilities mainly of the landlord? It's the landlord will be responsible for the general repairs and the maintenance of your unit or the apartment, and repairing anything that came with the unit, like appliances or plumbing or toilet or sink. Those are few examples. Providing all utilities at all times. Again, that one is like we have touched in earlier slides, that if the utilities are included or if you have to pay it yourself, regardless, it is providing all utilities at all time. That includes water, electricity, and heat. And here there's a timeline also for the when the landlord has to turn on the heat, and when the heater the AC has to be turned on. So there are timelines for those. Your landlord cannot enter your apartment without advance notice or without your permission. Your landlord can request deposit or fees for the last month rent. And sorry, I can see that. Okay, and key replacements or checks that have not been approved by the bank. Tenant rights and landlord responsibilities may differ in certain circumstances. Like I said, if the landlord lives at the same address as you are, some circumstances change, and the rules are changed also, but it's not like drastically. It's there will be a slight differences in any depending on the circumstances. So moving out, here you must give 60 days written notice if you're planning to move out. Your landlord must give you 60 days written notice if they are asking you to move out as well. However, there are some exceptions to this. So depending if the landlord is asking you to move out, you will be given a form which on the top will say it's letter N with any number. So depending on what numbers is associated with that N, that will tell you the reason why the landlord is asking you for 60 days notice. However, again, depending on which form you given, you can either file a dispute to the landlord and tenant board, because you have a rights also. So these are some of the available supports who can help in terms of their housing. Again, if you have any tenant, landlord or tenant issue, there are, excuse me, there are legal clinics within your catchment area. You can always go and check if you have any issues with the landlord, and if you think it's not right, you should always seek legal support. And these are some of the common websites. Kijiji is not on there nowadays. There are many, depending on the language, depending on the community. There are many groups on Facebook that they advertise affordable places as well. So this is housing and housing related benefits. So first thing is we talk about Toronto House subsidized housing, which is the application through the housing connections. And second thing is the rent bank. There is the eligibility criteria. If you're on Ontario Works, I don't think you are eligible for rent bank. The rent bank is usually when someone is behind rent. If you are not able to pay rent for this month or last month, or that's when you go it's an online rent bank. It takes the application, you have to do the application, takes about 5 business days. You must live in Toronto. Pay a market rent for rental unit covered by a Residential Tenancy Act. Again, whenever there is an issue with the landlord or anything, it's important that you need to check the Residential Tenancy Act. Housing related benefits, yeah. So one of the criteria is you have to be within the low income household eligibility. If you're beyond, your income is beyond that, then you may not be eligible to be in the subsidized, or to receive subsidy. Currently not in the receipt of social assistance. That is according to the rent bank. You cannot be you cannot be in the receipt of social assistance, Ontario Works or ODSP. So this is some of like if there's issue with the rental, again, stabilization fund, I've covered that one. And with that, we come to the end. For those of folks who are refugee claimants who just arrived, I know you have not had your hearing yet because the waiting time right now is ridiculous. However, we have one program where we it's called a ready tour. It's like what it is like to be in a hearing. So if you would like to attend that tour, we have and you need to send your name, where you're from, and if you have a refugee hearing date, if that's applicable, and you send email to the Carolina Teves down there. You can send email, and if you have a language barrier, you can also put that in the email, and you can participate in the IRB, the refugee hearing room in Toronto. What it is actually, what you need to expect on your hearing day. So this is, I really encourage, because it's really important to know what you will be expecting on your hearing date. And with this, I think we have finished.